It's half eaten. Talk about passivity, huh? I've slowly been getting better at interpreting my dreams. I'm nowhere near, Jungian professor, obviously. I mean, that's like decades of dream interpretations. All I'm doing is using what I know, trying to gather little facts about what's happening in the dream, but more so, I'm definitely more conscious of my experience and how I feel about what's happening in the dream, more than actually knowing what's happening. The last few months, they've been going crazy deep. So deep. When you're just going through cycles and cycles of dreams. Especially after the night shifts. Driving around in the machine for 6 hours on the nights. And because I've been so well at, maintaining good, healthy meditation throughout the shifts, I've been finding myself, you can imagine, 40 or 50 hours a week, staying up at night, the depth of thought, and it's been leading me to have these unexplainably deep dreams. The dreams that I'm experiencing consciously are making me realize more of what my deep projections are and idealizations. I'm learning that the dragon really becomes vulnerable to a bit of exposure when it seeks the idealization. And I'm getting an idea of where my strongest idealization was. The last few months, most of the dreams have been, I've seen projections of my unconscious with siblings, other family members, parents, mom, dad. And I've been gathering back these projections, right? I'm not trying to interpret the dreams yet, right? We only took one unit in the course with dream interpretation, and I learned not just actually what's happening in the dreams. I learned the method, the approach to interpreting that you'll just never learn in any theology, any mythology, or any science. It's the method, that works. It's the only method, really, that can explain what's happening and why it's happening, and what the projections are, and what the figures and the characters mean. So I haven't focused on trying to explain, I haven't been seeking explanations, but I'm becoming more conscious of my experience in the dream, and I'm realizing that the more conscious I am of the idealization, of the projection. So when I'm in the dream and I become conscious, as I feel the projection start to withdraw from the dream, in the dream, I can feel that I'm having this dream and I'm experiencing this person in this certain way because of my projection towards them. And the stronger that projection is, the more I'm feeling the presence of the dragon. And the other night, I think I realized my strongest projection was firstly to my religion, and secondly my ex-partner. And the projection I felt that I was becoming conscious of was so strong and so unconscious that in the dream, when I was becoming conscious of what was happening and how I was projecting to my ex-partner in the dream, and whatever person she was with, I know was just another projection of my subconscious, right? I don't know who that person is. This is the thing. When you see, you have dreams of whether it's it's not the fact that it has to be an ex-partner from some toxic relationship. The fact is, you're trying to locate where your strongest projection was, right? I mean, usually, for both men and women, it is the first intimate relationship, the first intimate partner, right? And you know those dreams you have where the same scene keeps playing over and over? And I was watching the scene play over and over, and I remember becoming conscious, waking up, and just becoming frustrated and very anxious about why I was seeing these scenes happen in the dream with, like, you know, my ex-partner, with whatever man she was with. I know consciously that I don't know anything about this person's life, or, you know, what the future, like, not the future. I mean, I can tell, you can kind of get an idea of, you know, what your ex's future is going to look like, but I'm saying in the present, you know, if you haven't been in contact, it's like, that's the thing about the unconscious. It will show you what you're projecting in the dream, you know, and then you start getting into, like, synchronicity and, you know, deja vus and all that. So knowing this consciously, I went back to sleep. I'd go back to sleep, and then I would watch the scene happen again. I can't remember if it was like these two people kind of sitting together, and then like I was kind of spectating, and then they would look at me, and I'm like, in the dream, I'm rejecting the experience that I'm feeling, and there's something that is rejecting my rejection of the projection, right? So I'm withdrawing the projection in the dream of understanding, okay, this is what's happening. In the dream, I'm aware that what is happening in front of me is my projection, right? Because of how strong my idealizing transference was to this archetypal figure, right? This whole experience in a dream, it's all archetypal. Everything that happens in the dream is archetypal. Every experience you see, or feel, every experience you have, it's all archetypal. It's all projection. And it's all unconscious. So when you're becoming conscious in the real time that it's happening in the dreams, this has never happened to me. You wake up, and when you go back to sleep, your unconscious tries again. The dragon is trying to hide again from your consciousness. You're becoming conscious. And for the first time, I think, I got an idea of, I think I got a glimpse of this thing. As the scene was playing again and again, and I was becoming more conscious, every time I'd go back in the dream and re-watch the cycle or the scene or whatever, things started to slow down more. And in the dream, I started becoming conscious of what was happening in front of me. And then when I became conscious, the scene changed. And when it changed, everything went dark. And I remember being fully conscious. But I was still dreaming. Everything was dark. And I remember opening my eyes and it was pitch black. But I was standing up, I was standing up, and I remember looking around. And I could hear it breathing. This thing is it is a seismic presence. And I remember I wasn't feeling scared or anxious. I knew I was in its presence. I knew I switched off the play that was happening in the dream. And it collapsed. When it collapsed, this thing became exposed. This was like 2 or 3 nights ago. See, I don't know what the narrative of the dream was, really. I mean, it was my ex-partner. There was a guy figure there. Can't really tell who it was. All I know is, however he looked like, it's just what I projected, as the kind of man that this person would end up with, right? So that was irrelevant. But when the scene collapsed and everything went dark, I was standing and I could look to my right, and there was the lighting was dark, very dim. But as I would look, so my vision carried like a bit of light. I'm standing next to it. I mean, I knew how, you study the mythology of the dragon, the Leviathan, and the human beings, we've always projected this thing to be massive, right? But you're never going to gain perspective. You're never going to really feel the scale. Just the scale, you know what I mean? It's like you see stuff on TV and then, you see it in real life. If you go I don't know if my scarce viewers have ever been like a whale watching, you go see the whale. A lot of people talk about the experience being like, they're just caught off guard to the size, to the scale. I remember when I was a kid, in my airport days, being obsessed with the planes. I remember seeing the big A380s on TV, like when they first started launching right at Melbourne Airport. I remember just seeing them like on TV. And then I remember when I went to the airport and I saw one for the first time up close. Like, you're speechless of the scale of this thing. It's a building, right? It was the same experience in the dream, and I wasn't scared when I knew I was in its presence. But when I saw what this thing was, I looked to my right, and it's on my right. It's on the right side, and I'm standing, and it's exhaling, right? I can hear it breathing through its, imagine like short exhales through like massive nostrils, like it's kind of like it was sleeping. I was standing and I could see its teeth. This thing had it's like a crocodile. Its jaws stretched out. And its teeth. I was standing and I was the size of its teeth. You see what I'm saying? Like, it just takes up the background. And I could see its jaw, it's like scaly jaws, you know, and the teeth. And I remember, I could smell it. It wasn't a good smell. And it wasn't, you know, a foul smell. It was definitely primitive, animalistic. I mean, you smell this aroma, and you know you're in the presence of something that's obviously not human. It's an animal. It's kind of a bad smell. Didn't have that kind of mammal farm animal kind of smell. It had a more distinct, unique smell. I don't think I've smelt it. Like, maybe if you... I remember in the dream, I was trying to become conscious of what the smell was, and as I was standing there trying to imagine what this thing was, I remember all the visions that were coming to my mind were felines, you know, lions, big cats, primitive cats, you know, prehistoric feline faces, like the eyes. And as I was smelling, like, you're smelling the scent, and your brain is trying to put an image as to what is given off that scent, right? And all the images I'm getting are just like this primitive cat animal, not like a lion, you know, like maybe the old saber-toothed tigers, or like just something primitive. This thing, I gave up. I remember I opened my eyes, it was still dark, and I'm like, okay, this thing is definitely not some saber-toothed prehistoric, you know, mammal. This thing is primitive. I could sense its power. It had so much power that in the dream, when I was standing there, I realized its immortal nature, its divine nature. Because all I could remember when I was standing there, looking at it, just, I couldn't see this thing, like I could just see its jaws and its teeth, and I'm standing and I could just think, like, you know, the crazy emotions and anxiety that I was feeling from this idealizing projection that I was having in this dream, seeing my ex-partner and the power, you know, that I was giving to this idealizing transference. I was giving it so much power that I knew by doing it, it was destroying my being. It was destroying my existence, right? As I'm withdrawing it, I'm gaining back the power, obviously, right? You're becoming conscious, you're gaining the energy back. It's energy, you know, energy is the word here. And I just remember feeling how much energy I was giving through that channel, that idealizing channel, right? And when I woke up and the scene collapsed and I'm standing next to this primitive dragon, I'm standing next to it, and I become conscious that it's this thing that is driving this idealizing transference, right? The energy that it was taking out of me, this thing was living on. And the scene collapsed because it can't continue on when you become conscious. When you become conscious of the projection, the scene has to change. But the thing is, I was still in the dream. I'm still in the dream. So my unconscious can't project something that I'm conscious about now, right? So it's like I accidentally spawned backstage. You know what I mean? I accidentally spawned backstage, and I was in the midst of the corporate that was producing this energy through my idealizing transference. And let me tell you, this corporate, this master that dwells in the unconscious, right? That is its lair. That is its throne. It's your unconscious is the dragon's territory. You find yourself present there, obviously in a dream, right? Unless you're in psychosis, but you find yourself present consciously in its presence. I mean, you're not a threat. It's not a threat to you, that's the thing. And you're not a threat to it, right? What I mean by you is your conscious ego. Your conscious ego becomes conscious of its counterpart, its unconscious counterpart, right? It knows that your ego has inheritance claim over the throne, right? It just doesn't know that you're human, and it doesn't care. It really doesn't. You provoke this thing, even though you're not a threat. You provoke it unconsciously. I mean, it just wakes up and just... It eats you. It consumes your consciousness. You end up in the psych ward. Or you become an addict. It's big. This thing, for months I've been trying to imagine and visualize the size of this thing. It's big, and it's breathing. It is breathing inside your unconscious. It is primitive, man. This thing is pre-dinosaur. You get a sense from its smell. You can't help but get a sense of its power, its beastly nature, you know? Like, you know, if you ever been close up some kind of open range zoo, and you ever get close up to the lions, and you could smell the blood, you know, from, you know, the blood staining their fur from, you know, devouring their meals. And if they walk past, it's like you get a scent. It is a bad smell. It's not a good smell, but it's not like a smell where it's not like a rotten smell where you can't stand it and you throw up. It's just like an unwelcoming, an uncomfortable smell that gives your consciousness some kind of idea of its nature. You know what I mean? Yeah. We'll see you in the next one.